Hi, this video is an introduction to Control Solutions BabelBuster model MQ61. This gateway is used to connect Modbus devices to Amazon Web Services via the Internet of Things support provided by Amazon. This video is not going to be a tutorial on the MQTT protocol. There is a lot of information available about MQTT on the Internet. What we are going to talk about here is the details of connecting a Modbus device to an Amazon web server using the MQ61 IoT gateway to translate between MQTT and Modbus protocol. So in this video we're going to create our first thing on Amazon and get the MQ61 set up to send data to the Amazon web server. So you'd start by creating an account on Amazon if you don't have one already. Simply go to aws.amazon.com and either create an account or sign in if you already have one. Now when you get to your management console, once you've visited a few different things in AWS, some shortcuts will be listed here for you, but the very first time you log in, simply type in IoT Core. So when we get to the IoT Core, first thing we're going to see is a monitor page that'll start to show some data after you've had some interactions. I've had some interactions from previous devices that I've since deleted, so you can see what this looks like starting out with no things defined. So you want to come down to Manage, and it's going to say you don't have any things yet. So we want to register a thing, create a single new thing, give it a name, and that's really all you need to do at this point. We need to create some certificates. These are SSL certificates. These are required for making the secure connection between the IoT gateway and the AWS server. And we want to download those. We need the certificate for this thing. We need the private key. We need to activate those certificates. We also need to download a root CA, and here they send you on a little bit of a wild goose chase to go find it, but we want to come down here to the Amazon Trust Services CA and simply come down and grab one of these. It's going to give it to you in text form like this, so we copy that. Just go open up Notepad, paste it in. Save it as, I want to save it as .pem file because that defines the format of the certificate. We want to collect our certificates and rename a couple of these slightly. We want them to end in .pem. And then we'll come over to the IoT gateway, go to the file manager, and upload our files. Then come over to the IoT Cloud page, go to the Thing Files page, and here's our root CA, so we apply that here. Our private key goes right here, and the device certificate goes right here. Then over on the Thing ID page, oh, I forgot one step here. We need to attach a policy. We just attach the default policy, register the thing. We've now successfully registered our thing. The name of the thing is CSI Demo Thing 1, so we put that right here. The port is going to be 8883 unless they tell us otherwise. And then we want to go back here and click on the thing, come down here to interact. And this is the host name for our thing. Come and put that right here. And save that. We have created our thing and downloaded our SSL certificates. There's one more thing we need to do before the server is going to respond to our thing attempting to contact the server. You need to come over here and make some connections inside the server. So select our certificate, come over here to Actions. We want to attach a policy. We'll attach our default policy to this certificate. We also need to attach our things to the certificate. And the policy, what this does is tell the server what kind of connections are allowed between the server and our device. The default is basically allow everything, but if at some point you want to start to restrict communication for some reason, then you can come in here and start modifying the policy. Without any policy, what happens is the IoT gateway will succeed in connecting to the Amazon server, but the server will basically ignore it because no communications such as subscribe and publish are permitted according to our policy. So if you get an error message in the IoT gateway that says the request simply timed out, you probably skip this step of attaching a policy. I've already created some local registers in this thing, in this gateway. Normally these registers, local registers, would be collecting data from various Modbus devices. In our case, we're just going to use the object locally. We're not going to concern ourselves with the Modbus side of things at this point. We're just going to demonstrate the connection to the Amazon web server. So we start by going over here to the thing points page, and we'll define our first point to be local register number 1. We're going to publish it. Use the default topic. Let's just make up some rule for the sake of demo here. We're going to publish this point anytime the data value gets to be greater than 50. And those are really the only things we need to fill in for minimum parameters to make something happen here. One other thing we're going to take a quick look at is our device shadow. Right now our shadow state is empty. Information will start to show up here once we begin to publish to our device shadow. The shadow maintains a copy of data that has been published by our device, and if some other device on the internet or some other web app wants to send data to our device, it will publish to this shadow, and our device will receive updates to this shadow. And the advantage of using a shadow is that if our device happens to be temporarily offline, when it comes back online, it will still receive the information from the device shadow, which is maintained on the Amazon server. So at this point, we're ready to go back over to the device and make our first attempt at connecting to the server. And we will do that. We've got everything already set up. The only thing we haven't done is enable the engine. We want to make sure that everything else is all set up before we do this. And click Update. And one thing we want to make sure of is come over here on the network setup page and make sure that the NTP server is running. If this says current time is like 1970, that says that NTP is not yet running, and you want to check your IP addresses, make sure you have valid NTP servers set up. You can go to the NIST website or various websites and find valid IP addresses for NTP time servers, but without the correct time, SSL certificates are deemed to be invalid and the server will not connect. So we'll come over here to our status page and see where we're at, and we have a successful connection. So now, because we said that we should publish data to our sensor anytime the value exceeds 50, if we come over here and enter a value of something greater than 50, that should result in publishing. And if we want to look on the gateway side and see if anything happened, we can come over here on the test page and look at the last publish, and there it is. If we come over to the server and check our shadow, there's our data. And we can pretty much play with this all day long if we like at this point. And it's fairly quick to update information in the shadow. So at this point we've accomplished our first successful publish to the Amazon web server, and you can of course continue on to add points to the point list that would be reported. As you add more items to the thing points list here, all of those items will begin to show up in the shadow state as you begin to publish more data. One attribute that's worth noting is there's a bunch of optional attributes in the thing, in the rule that says when to publish, but one of the things that I want to point out here is publish as part of a data set. If you're going to want to see multiple data points at the same time, you'll want to assign them to a data set, and it's an arbitrary number. This is just a number you make up, but you want to assign all of the data points that you want to see grouped together into the same data set. And what will happen then is when any of the rules within that data set say publish now, all of the members of that data set will be published regardless of whether or not their particular rule says publish now. So it becomes a logical ORing together of all the publish rules to decide when to publish, and any of the rules saying publish now will result in all members of that data set being published at that point in time. And what will happen then is you come over here and you'll see the reported value for all of those values being reported at the same time. So let's just go ahead and add a second rule here. We'll publish, and we'll say this one should be greater than 100 before we publish, and we're going to include this in data set 1. And now we want to go back and put our original point in data set 1 as well. So now let's come over here and make sensor number 2 something greater than 100 like we said it should be. And here we see both sensors published. The shadow state will retain the most recent value published for each attribute regardless of whether or not they were published together. So you're not going to see that synchronization so much here in the shadow state, but what will happen later on when you start to send this data to IoT analytics and database functions, you will want all of the data to be published together in order to make good data sets in your database. So at this point we have basically accomplished what we set out to accomplish in this particular video. There are going to be additional videos that cover the subject of subscribing as well as IoT analytics.